An ending. The next day was Sunday. Claire texted in the morning. Claire, John, how do we handle the sacrament today? Me, I would prefer being in the foyer for the sacrament. Claire, maybe we could go late. We showed up late and also lingered in the foyer. I refused to go in, hating the idea of an audience to our refusal of the sacrament. Also, it was the first Sunday of the month, meaning fast and testimony meeting. People's testimonies had grown tiresome, like, oh really, you just know the church is true, or how exactly do you feel Christ's love in your life? Fast and testimony meetings are kind of like those writers who release tell-all memoirs with just way too much detail, and every word is directed at a culture that supposedly rewards authenticity. But really, it's a painful attempt to become relevant before he peaks at 30 and his career is over. I'm definitely not speaking from personal experience here, so stop with your skepticism. Yeah, that's right, fourth wall break to call out your bullshit. I didn't speak to Claire during sacrament. We were together and alone, but I couldn't even acknowledge her. When the meeting finished, Claire and I stood, filtering in with the crowd. I went to gospel doctrine with Claire. When it came time for priesthood, I played hooky to lie in bed. Claire texted after church. Claire, has your class finished? Claire, I'm by the chapel. Want to come find me? Claire, Jonathan, oh Jonathan, wherefore art thou Jonathan? Claire, did you leave? I ignored all the texts, unable to laugh at her ironic misreading of Shakespeare, and stayed in bed. How much did I want this relationship? I was miserable, so why not just break up with Claire? Perhaps I believed her when she said no one would ever love me as much as her. I knew she was my last barrier between the life I wanted and the life I was supposed to want. Maybe I believed we could make it work, if I just committed. Life would be so much simpler that way. But if our relationship was just as bad in marriage as in dating, I wouldn't last long in marriage. What if we had a kid and I left 10 years later? That was something I refused to do. I would either stay with my family or not have one at all. Dad had left, devastating my teenage years and beyond. I have no pictures of the year he left. In 2003, we were a family who photographed our memories. We were building something together. The time spent together was precious and worth remembering. My brother's marching band went to the Rose Bowl parade. We went on a trip to Europe for my sister's graduation. All of it was documented, Dad by our sides. There was nothing in those pictures to foreshadow what was to come. The future was bright. So why no pictures of 2004? They were either never taken or were too painful for Mom to save. The time was a separate life. There are no pictures of that year because the people who experienced those events pushed the memories away. They had nothing left to build. Had they wanted to remember, you might see a newly single mother, trying to reclaim an identity tied up into a man to whom she had devoted herself. Because of him, she had never finished school. Starting a nursing program after his departure was the only way she could gain an identity of her own. You might see a son who had already begun to isolate himself, who believed with all his heart that the world would never be right again, and something fundamental inside himself had broken. He was just beginning to realize he was different in all the worst possible ways. You might also see a family together on their mom's birthday. She melted into tears, and so did they. Together they sobbed in the bed where, months before, they had studied scriptures with their father, their husband, their leader who had promised them everything would be all right. The mother and children existed as one person in that moment, swallowed in grief for the man they had loved. They still loved him, and somehow that fact deepened the hurt that had nestled around their hearts. All of it was gone, left in the past. It never happened because they wanted to forget. The following pictures in the album are from January 2005, Mom's wedding. The ceremony took place in the bishop's office. The groom was a new convert to the church. In the pictures are 4 children, the only ones invited to the wedding, just trying to keep it all together, to not burst into tears, trying to pretend they weren't hollow shells of their former selves left behind from their parents' actions. The marriage happened too fast, but who are they to say otherwise? Following that is another trip to Europe, like 2 years before, but with one crucial difference. The father had been replaced by a stranger, and everyone did their best to pretend nothing was the matter. I was a ticking time bomb, defused only because I believed I was born to be a writer, that I could change the world if I worked hard enough. But existence was a terrible, horrible thing. My isolation left me crippled. My thoughts would spiral down forever in a never-ending cycle of the most vicious self-hatred. Dad would show up every few months after he underwent a change in lifestyle, as he liked to put it, like it was as simple as a change of clothes, ignoring the 5 lives he derailed. He had already retired and was happy. He had to be. Everything he did was deliberate, the results anticipated. To act otherwise would mean admitting to himself that he wasn't in control of the situation. Doing that to someone was already bad enough, but ignoring the fallout was inexcusable. I refused to have children. The time had come to break up with Claire. No more delaying. I would do it the next time I saw her. Resolve sealed my fate. I somehow knew that I would only have to decide to be with a man once, but if I married a woman, I would have to make that decision every day for the rest of my life. I was so tired of deciding every day. I got up an hour later to do homework. My phone buzzed. Claire, rumor has it you're awake. I wanted to punch my roommates. She went through them to find out what I was doing. She had pulled the roommate trick before. Resolved, I left my apartment. We met at her place. Harper was in the kitchen with us. I couldn't do it with her there. Do you think we could go outside? I asked. Claire nodded. We left her apartment, sitting on our usual steps outside Building F of Heritage Halls. We sat in silence for several minutes. Claire looked at me. She must have known. Our relationship had been going downhill. I gave no effort, and even she gave less effort than she used to. Our end had been obvious since the first time she tried to have sex. I stuck with her because life would have been so much simpler as a straight man. I wouldn't have to endure all the awkward conversations that now seemed inevitable. I hated causing problems or being the subject of scrutiny. I didn't want to be grouped with gay people and talked about behind my back as if I had somehow lost my way. I had lost my way, but over a decade of searching hadn't helped me find myself. I focused on Claire, breathing. The words congealed in my mouth. I just don't know if I can do this anymore. She gave her arguments. You kissed me first, and you held my hand in public first. I didn't raise my objections. She had a different view of our relationship. I didn't care enough to argue or fix it. Breaking up was my only goal. I love you, she said. I know. Her hand dropped from mine. Somehow, I knew that would be our last affectionate touch. A mix of joy and loss filled me. I'm sorry, I said. I just can't do it. Tears clouded Claire's eyes. She stood, crossing the path to Building E.